Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. I think this cartoon epitomizes what is wrong with the Zimbabwe politics. When you're talking of we need political change, we need to understand what kind of change we want and how we can attain it. Zanu PF blatantly rigged last year's elections and got away with it because the MDC, Triple C leaders have failed to implement even one token reform in 24 years, including the 5 in the GNU. And to crown it all, they've been participating in flawed elections, knowing fully well that their participation will give Zanu PF legitimacy. They continued to participate out of greed. It is for the people to understand that, the electorate to understand that. The problem with Zimbabwean electorate is they have not understood that position. They still have the mentality that as long as we can replace Zanu PF, everything will be okay. Life is never that simple. There are challenges in life that one has got to understand and adjust to. In the late 1990s, when the people decided that they needed reforms, that they needed to elect the opposition, risking livelihoods, limbs, and even lives, to elect opposition leaders on the understanding that the opposition leaders would implement the democratic reforms necessary to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections. That should be the number one thing to be understood there. MDC leaders, Morgan Tsvangirai and his friends, when they launched their party in 1999, they promised to deliver those democratic changes that the people were after. And they even called their party Movement for Democratic Change. Now, 24 years down the line, including the 5 during the GNU, they failed to implement even one democratic reform. The GNU was the golden opportunity to do so, and yet they failed to implement one reform. The people themselves have to understand that, and God knows many people have tried to explain to these people the reality, that political reality. Why some of them have failed to understand it beggars belief. The ancient Greeks were right. Democracy, meaning the government of the people, for the people, by the people, only works if the people are educated, knowledgeable, and diligent in their duty to hold those in public office to account. What we are seeing with this Chamisa Chete Chete brigade is the exact opposite. The level of ignorance, naivety shown by this Chamisa Chete Chete brigade is what is stopping Zimbabwe making meaningful progress in terms of getting political change. Chamisa participated in the 2018 elections, telling his supporters that MDC Alliance has implemented stringent democratic changes to stop Zanu PF rigging the elections. He was lying, but the people believed him. They participated in those elections and gave Zanu PF legitimacy. Soon after, the war broke out between himself and initially Dr. Zanu PF and then later on Douglas Monzora. He lost the MDC alliance to those two leaders. He went on a sabbatical, came back 2 years before the 2023 elections, launched his Triple C party. The people followed him in their millions. He assured them that Triple C was going to win big, even though people warned him again and again that without reforms, Zanu PF will rig the elections. He argued that he had plugged all the vote rigging loopholes. Of course, he was lying. But his millions of supporters believed him, and he participated in those elections. And we all know, and we're not surprised at all that Zanu PF won those elections. And by participating in their millions, gave Zanu PF legitimacy. I believe Chamisa is just on sabbatical, marking time. When we get into a year, 2 years before the 2028 election, he will emerge out of the sabbatical, promise his followers that he will win the elections, and they will participate in their millions again. This is political paralysis. This is the political paralysis that I'm talking about. We can't keep repeating the same mistake over and over again. We need to learn from the past. We need the electorate who are educated, knowledgeable, and diligent. And this Chamisa Chete Chete brigade are undermining those very values. They are begging him, please come out and lead us. They are failing to understand that after 24 years, 5 of which in the GNU, MDC leaders have failed to deliver even one meaningful reform. That must mean something. That is part of the education. The people themselves must be asking themselves, are we electing the wrong kind of leaders? And the clear answer is yes, you are. If Chamisa and company have failed to implement even one token reform, surely the people must realize that they need leaders who can implement the reforms. That should not be rocket science. But I think in Zimbabwe, we have got that problem. We have got an electorate who believe that all the country's problems will be solved if they elect somebody else other than Zanu PF. In this particular case, that somebody else cannot be MDC or Triple C, because these MDC Triple C leaders are not interested in stopping Zanu PF rigging the elections. There is a lot of truth in saying MDC Triple C leaders are Zanu PF Team B in all but name. They've shown that they're quite happy with failing to implement even one reform, and then in participating in flawed elections, as long as they get the reward of a few gravy train seats. The people must understand that. After 24 years of MDC, Triple C failing to implement even one reform, that should be understood. I think one of the tragedies that's going to happen to Zimbabwe is come 2028, we see a repeat of what happened in 2023. Chamisa calling his followers to participate in another flawed elections in their millions, only to give Zanu PF legitimacy. But if the truth be told, that is almost certain to happen. Try as we might to explain to these people that Chamisa is not interested in bringing up political change. It's only interested in getting a share of the gravy train seats. They are refusing to understand that. It is incumbent on all Zimbabweans to make sure that they do. The worst thing that can happen to Zimbabwe is for Zanu PF to rig 2028 elections and millions of Zimbabweans participate in those flawed elections and give the regime legitimacy. That will be tragic. Thank you very much for those of you who were able to join, and have a good day.